Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of his starship. Bright lights from the control panels lit up his tired face. He had been traveling through space for 3 months, now looking for new worlds that humans had never seen before. His ship, the Valiant, was not the biggest or strongest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and had good equipment for finding new things. Captain, I am getting some strange readings on my screen, said Dr. Lisa Carter. She was the science officer on the ship. Lisa was smart and had been studying space and planets for many years. Her job was to find anything unusual or interesting that they came across during their travels. Jake walked over to look at Lisa's screen. The numbers and pictures on it showed something he had never seen before. What kind of readings, Lisa? There is a small planet in this system that shows signs of life, but the readings are very strange. The planet looks like it should not be able to support any living things, but there are definitely creatures living there. And, Captain, there are also signs of some kind of technology, but it does not look like anything we have seen from other space civilizations. Jake thought about this for a moment. In all his years of space travel, he had met many different types of aliens. Some were friendly, some were not. Some had technology that was far beyond what humans could understand, while others were still living in simple ways. But he had never seen readings quite like these. Have any other civilizations been to this system before? Jake asked Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake, who was Jake's second in command. Looked through the computer records. Ryan was good at finding information and had a memory for details that always impressed Jake. Yes, sir. Many civilizations have sent ships to look at this system over the past 300 years. The Zapirian Empire sent a survey team here in 2387. The Crystalline Confederation looked at it twice, once in 2401 and again in 2445. Even the Void traders, who will go anywhere if there is profit to be made, came here in 2478. And what did they all decide? Jake asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. Every single report says the same thing. No valuable resources, no strategic importance, no reason to return. They all marked it as worthless and moved on to other systems. Jake looked out the big window at the front of the bridge. The planet they were talking about looked small and blue from where they were. It had white clouds moving across its surface and looked peaceful. Set course for the planet. Let's take a closer look at what everyone else decided was not worth their time. The Valiant moved closer to the planet. As they got nearer, Lisa's equipment began picking up more detailed information. Captain, I am now detecting what looks like cities or settlements on the surface. They are small, but they are definitely there, and the energy readings are getting stronger. What kind of energy? Jake asked. I have never seen anything like it. It is not nuclear power or fusion power or any kind of technology we know about. It seems to be coming from the living creatures themselves. Jake felt excited. Finding a new type of intelligent life was always interesting, but finding one that had been ignored by every other civilization in the galaxy was even more special. Prepare a landing team. Ryan, Lisa, and I will go down to the surface. Make sure we bring the universal translator and peaceful contact protocols. The landing team prepared their equipment and got into a small shuttle. As they flew down through the planets, atmosphere they could see the surface. More clearly, there were indeed cities. But they were unlike any cities that humans or other aliens had built. Instead of metal and concrete, these cities seemed to be made of crystal and light. The buildings looked like they were grown rather than built, and they glowed softly with their own inner light. "Captain, look at that," Lisa said, pointing out the shuttle window. Below them, small creatures were moving around the crystal city. They looked somewhat like human children, but they had large eyes that seemed to sparkle with intelligence. Their skin was pale and seemed to shimmer slightly, and they moved with a grace that looked almost like dancing. The shuttle landed in an open area near the city. Jake and his team stepped out carefully, wearing their space suits, just in case. The air was not safe for humans to breathe, but their equipment showed that the air was actually very clean and would be perfectly fine to breathe. As soon as they stepped out of the shuttle, several of the small creatures approached them. Jake could see that they were not afraid, just curious. Their large eyes looked at the humans with interest, and they seemed to be communicating with each other, though Jake could not hear any sounds. One of the creatures, who seemed to be older than the others, stepped forward. Jake knelt down so that he would not tower over the small being. The creature was no taller than a human child, but Jake could see wisdom in its ancient-looking eyes. The universal translator on Jake's belt began working. "Welcome, tall visitors from the sky," the creature said in a voice that sounded like music. "I am called Whisper of Stars by my people. We are the Nexari. We have seen your kind in our dreams, but never in our waking world. I am Captain Jake Morrison," Jake replied, speaking slowly so the translator would work properly. "We are humans. We came from far away to learn about your people and your world. Are you here to take from us as the others would have?" Whisper of Stars asked. There was no fear in her voice, only sadness, as if she had been expecting this question to be asked someday. "What others?" Jake asked, confused. "We have felt the presence of many sky people over the years. They come, they look, they decide. We have nothing they want, and they leave, but we always wondered if someday someone would come who wanted to take what we do have." Lisa was scanning the area with her equipment and getting readings that made her eyes grow wide. "Captain, these beings are generating quantum energy fields. I think they can manipulate matter and energy with their minds. This is incredible." As if to demonstrate Lisa's words, Whisper of Stars gestured toward a patch of bare ground near their feet. Suddenly, flowers began to grow from the earth, but these were not ordinary flowers. They glowed with the same soft light as the crystal buildings, and they seemed to sing with tiny musical notes that only the heart could hear. "We are a peaceful people," Whisper of Stars explained. "We can do many things that other creatures cannot do. We can heal injuries with our touch. We can speak to each other across great distances without machines. We can make things grow and change shape. But we use these gifts only to help and to create beautiful things. We do not use them to hurt or to take from others." Jake was beginning to understand why other civilizations had dismissed this world. The Nexari had incredible abilities, but they could not be turned into weapons or used to make profit. They were valuable in a way that most space civilizations could not understand. "We are not here to take anything from you," Jake said firmly. We are here to learn and to understand. And maybe, if you will let us, we can be friends. Whisper of Stars smiled, and when she did, the flowers around them seemed to glow brighter. That would be wonderful, Captain Morrison. It has been so long since anyone wanted to be our friend instead of our master. As Jake looked around at the Crystal City and the peaceful Nexari going about their daily lives, he realized that his crew had discovered something truly special, something that every other civilization in the galaxy had looked at and decided was worthless. But Jake knew better. Sometimes the most valuable things in the universe were not the ones that could be bought or sold or turned into weapons. Sometimes the most valuable things were simply worth protecting. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Jake Morrison and his crew first met the Nexari people. During this time they had learned many amazing things about Whisper of Stars and her peaceful civilization. The humans had set up a small camp near the Crystal City, and every day brought new discoveries about the Nexaris. Incredible abilities. Dr. Lisa Carter spent most of her time studying how the Nexari could make things happen. Just by thinking about them, she watched as Nexari children could make broken objects fix themselves and help sick animals become healthy again. The Nexari adults could talk to each other without speaking, sending thoughts across great distances as easily as humans might wave hello. It is remarkable, Captain, Lisa told Jake as they sat in their temporary shelter. The Nexari do not just have one special ability, they seem to be able to control the very building blocks of matter and energy, but they only use these powers to help and create, never to harm. Jake had been thinking about this too. In his many years of traveling through space, he had met civilizations that use their special abilities to conquer others, to make themselves rich, or to gain power over weaker peoples. But the Nexari were different. They seemed to have no desire for wealth or power or control over anyone else. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake was working on his computer when an urgent message appeared on his screen. His face became serious as he read the information. Captain, we are receiving a priority message from Fleet Headquarters. Admiral Kate Sullivan wants to speak with you immediately. Jake walked over to the communication equipment and activated the long-range transmitter. The face of Admiral Sullivan appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had been Jake's commanding officer for many years, but today she looked worried in a way that Jake had rarely seen. Jake, we have a serious problem, Admiral Sullivan said without any greeting. Pleasantries. Our intelligence network has picked up movement from the Draconian hegemony. They are sending a large fleet toward your current location. Jake felt his stomach drop. The Draconian hegemony was one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. They were a warlike people who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They conquered weaker civilizations and took whatever they wanted from the worlds. They captured how large of a fleet? Admiral Jake asked. Our sources say at least 200 ships, including their biggest battleships. They are not coming for a friendly visit, Jake. Our spies suggest they have learned about the Nexari and want the planet for themselves. But why? The Nexari have no weapons, no military technology, nothing that the Draconians usually want. Admiral Sullivan's expression became even more grim. That may be exactly what they want. Jake, think about it, a people who can manipulate energy and matter but refuse to fight back. The Draconians could use them as living shields. With Nexari prisoners on their ships, no one would be able to attack the Draconians without harming innocent people. Jake felt sick as he understood what this meant. The Draconians would not just conquer the Nexari world. They would enslave the Nexari people and force them to use their abilities to help the Draconians in their wars against others. There is more, Jake. Admiral Sullivan continued. Our science division has been analyzing the reports you sent about the planet. The world's core contains large deposits of trilithium. That material could power the Draconian war machine. For centuries, they want both the planet and its people. After the communication ended, Jake sat quietly for several minutes thinking about what he had just learned. Ryan and Lisa waited for him to speak. How long do we have before the Draconian fleet arrives? Jake finally asked. Ryan checked his calculations. Based on their known ship speeds and the distance they have to travel, probably about 1 week, maybe less if they push their engines hard. Jake stood up and walked outside their shelter. The Nexari city looked so peaceful in the soft light of the planet's twin suns. Enzari children were playing games that involved making small lights dance in the air above their heads. Adult Nexari were tending to gardens where the plants seemed to grow and change shape based on the gardener's thoughts. Whisper dash of dash stars approached Jake from the city. She moved with her usual graceful steps, but Jake could see concern in her large wise eyes. Captain Morrison, we have felt a darkness approaching in our dreams, she said softly. The fire-hearted ones are coming, are they not? Jake was surprised. You know about the Draconians. We do not know them by name, but we have seen them in the shared dreams of our people. They burn with anger and hunger for power. They take what is not theirs and hurt those who cannot defend themselves. We have known for some time that they would eventually notice our world. Whisper of stars, your people could defend themselves if you chose to. Your abilities could be turned into powerful weapons. You could protect your world. The Nexari leader looked sad. No, Captain Morrison, we cannot. It is not our nature to cause harm to any living thing, even to save our own lives. We could not hurt another. It would destroy who we are as a people. We would rather die as Nexari than live as something we are not. Jake admired the Nexari for their principles, but it also made him worry more about their safety. Then what will you do when the Draconians arrive? We will welcome them as we welcomed you, with open hearts and peaceful intentions. Perhaps they will see that we mean no harm and will choose to leave us in peace. Jake knew that the Draconians would not be moved by peaceful intentions. They would see the Nixar's refusal to fight as weakness to be exploited. The thought of these gentle people being enslaved or killed by the brutal Draconian military made Jake angry. That evening Jake called his senior officers together for an emergency meeting. Lisa, Ryan, and the other department heads gathered in the main shelter to discuss their options. We could leave, suggested Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner, the ship's tactical officer. Our orders were to explore this system and report back. We have done that. No one would blame us for retreating when faced with a force of 200 Draconian ships. That is true. Jake said, but what happens to the Nixari when we leave? The room became quiet. Everyone knew the answer to that question. Sir, with respect, we are one small exploration ship, said Chief Engineer Ben Rogers. We have some weapons and shields, but nothing that could stand against the Draconian fleet. If we stay and fight, we will just be destroyed along with the Nixari. Our deaths will not save them. Lisa had been working on her portable computer during the meeting. She looked up with an expression that was both excited and troubled. Captain, I may have discovered something important. The Nexar abilities that I have been studying. They do not just affect matter and energy, they also affect the quantum fields that our technology uses. What does that mean? Jake asked. When the Nexari are nearby and using their abilities, our equipment works better. Our sensors are more accurate. Our computers process information faster. Even our engines run more efficiently. I think if the Nexari were willing to help us, they could make our ship much more powerful than it normally is. Ryan understood the implications immediately. But that would require the Nexari to use their abilities to help us in a battle. They have already said they will not do that. Actually, they might. Lisa continued. I have been talking with Whisper of Stars about their philosophy. They will not use their powers to hurt anyone, but they might be willing to use them to help others defend innocent people. It is a fine distinction, but an important one. Jake thought about this possibility. Even with enhanced technology, one human ship against 200 Draconian vessels would still be hopeless, but it might buy time for the Nixari to evacuate or for human reinforcements to arrive. I need to talk to Whisper of Stars again. Jake decided. We need to understand exactly what the Nixari are willing to do to protect themselves and others. As the meeting ended, Jake looked out at the peaceful Nixari city. In less than a week, this beautiful world would be under attack by one of the most ruthless military forces in the galaxy. The Nixari had survived for thousands of years by avoiding conflict and living in harmony with their world. Not now. For the first time in their history, they would have to choose between their principles of peace in their survival, and Jake would have to decide whether to risk his ship and crew to protect a people who might not even want to be protected. The easy choice would be to leave and let the Draconians take what they wanted. After all, as Alex had pointed out, they were just one small ship. But as Jake watched Nixari children playing their games of light and music, he knew that the easy choice was not always the right choice. Sometimes doing what was right meant standing up to impossible odds, even when victory seemed hopeless. The Draconians were coming, and soon Jake would have to decide what humanity was willing to sacrifice to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Draconian fleet arrived exactly when Ryan Blake had predicted. Their ships appeared at the edge of the star system, like dark clouds bringing a terrible storm. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching as his sensors counted the enemy vessels. 212 ships, including some of the largest battleships in the Draconian military. Captain, we are receiving a message from the Draconian flagship, reported Communications Officer Danny Walsh. Put it on the main screen, Jake ordered. The face that appeared was exactly what Jake had expected from a Draconian military commander. War Commander Thra had rough, dark skin, Covered in battle scars, his eyes were cold and cruel, and when he smiled, it showed sharp teeth that had been filed to points as a symbol of his rank. Human vessel, you are in violation of draconian territorial claims, Thra announced in a voice like grinding metal. Remove yourself from this system immediately or be destroyed. Jake stepped forward so that Thra could see him clearly. This system does not belong to the draconian hegemony. The Nexari people have lived here for thousands of years. They have the right to exist in peace. Thra laughed, a harsh sound that made Jake's skin crawl. Rights? The only right that matters is the right of the strong to take what they want from the weak. These Nexari creatures are useful to us. They will serve the hegemony or they will die. I cannot let you harm innocent people. Jake said firmly, you cannot stop us. Thra replied, you have one small ship. We have 200. Stand aside or be crushed. Like an insect, the communication ended, leaving Jake and his crew in tense silence. Outside their ship, the massive draconian fleet was moving into attack formation. Each of their battleships was 10 times larger than the Valiant and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. All hands battle stations, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat. Down on the planet's surface, something unexpected began to happen. The Nexari, people who had never faced violence in their entire civilization's history, started to gather in the centers of their crystal cities. Whisper of Stars stood with the other Nexari leaders, and together they began to do something they had never done before. They began to sing. But this was not singing with their voices. Instead, the Nexari used their minds to create music that existed in the quantum fields that connected all matter and energy. The song had no words, but it carried emotions and thoughts that reached across space to touch the hearts of everyone who could hear it. On the Valiant, Dr. Lisa Carter was monitoring her instruments when she noticed something strange happening. Captain, the Nexari are doing something with their abilities. I am detecting massive quantum field fluctuations across the entire planet. What kind of fluctuations? Jake asked as he prepared for the coming battle. I think they are trying to help us. The quantum fields around our ship are becoming stronger and more stable. Our shields, our weapons, our engines, everything is running better than it should be. Possible. Jake felt it too, though he could not explain what he was feeling. It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and his mind had become clearer and sharper than ever before. His fear of the coming battle was still there, but it was balanced by a calm certainty that he was doing the right thing. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was at his weapon station when he noticed the same effect. Sir, our targeting systems are showing accuracy rates I have never seen before. It is like the ship's computer can see things that should be impossible to detect. Pilot Sarah Martinez was flying one of the Valiant small fighter craft when the Nexari song reached her. Suddenly her reflexes became faster than she had ever experienced. Her small ship felt like an extension of her own body, responding to her thoughts almost before she had fully formed them. Control, this is Phoenix 1, Sarah reported over the radio. Something amazing is happening up here. I can see the enemy movements like I am reading their minds. My ship is responding to Controls that should not be possible. The Draconian fleet began their attack. With overwhelming force, War Commander Thra had expected the single human ship to be destroyed in the first few minutes of combat. What happened instead surprised everyone, including the humans. The Valiant moved through space like a dancer, avoiding weapons. Fire that should have been impossible to dodge. When the human ship fired back, every shot hit its target with perfect accuracy. The small fighter craft, piloted by humans, moved so fast and precisely that the Draconian gunners could not track them. This is impossible, Thrax snarled as he watched his forces take heavy damage from a ship that should have been helpless against them. How are these humans fighting like this? His second in command, Subcommander Vex, studied the battle data on his screen. Sir, there appears to be some kind of energy field affecting the battle. It is coming from the planet's surface. The humans are being enhanced by an outside source on the planet. The Nexari song continued to grow stronger. More and more Nexari joined the quantum harmony, and their combined abilities reached out to support the humans who had chosen to protect them. The Nexari were not participating in violence, but they were helping those who were willing to stand between them and harm. Whisper Dash of Dash Stars stood in the center of her city, her mind connected to thousands of other Nexari across the planet. Through their shared consciousness, she could feel the human ship fighting desperately against impossible odds. She could sense the bravery and determination of Captain Morrison and his crew. They are not fighting for conquest or for profit, Whisper of Stars thought to her people through their mental connection. They are fighting because they believe we deserve to live in peace. They are risking their lives for strangers they barely know. The Nexari song changed, becoming deeper and more powerful. Instead of just enhancing human technology, the quantum fields began to strengthen human courage and determination. Fear did not disappear, but it became manageable. Doubt was replaced by clear thinking. The humans found themselves fighting not just with better equipment, but with hearts and minds that were focused entirely on protecting the innocent. Captain Jake Morrison felt the change as his ship took heavy damage from draconian weapons. Each time his shields failed, they reformed stronger than before. When his weapons ran low on power, the energy systems recharged faster than should have been possible. Lisa, what is happening to our ship? Jake asked as the Valiant performed maneuvers that should have torn the vessel apart. The Nexari are somehow reinforcing our technology at the quantum level, Lisa explained while working frantically at her station. But it is more than that, Captain. They are reinforcing us too. Our minds, our reflexes, our ability to work together as a crew. We are fighting better than we ever have before. The battle continued for hours. The Draconian fleet, which had expected an easy victory, found themselves in a real fight. Human pilots performed impossible maneuvers while human gunners hit targets that should have been beyond their weapons' range. The single human ship seemed to be everywhere at once, striking at weak points in the Draconian formation with deadly precision. But the Nexari enhancement came at a cost. Down on the planet's surface, the Nexari people were exhausting themselves to maintain the quantum song. Many of the older Nexari began to collapse from the effort of sustaining such powerful abilities for so long. Dot whispered Dash. Of Dash stars felt the strain on her. People, but she also felt something else. Through the quantum connection, she could sense other minds joining the song far across the galaxy. Other peaceful species were hearing the Nexari call and adding their own abilities to the harmony. Captain Morrison whisper of stars sent a thought directly to Jake's mind. We cannot maintain this level of support much longer, but help is coming. Others have heard our song and are responding. Jake did not understand how Whisper of Stars was speaking directly into his thoughts, but he heard her message clearly. What kind of help? The kind that the galaxy has forgotten exists, the gentle ones, the peaceful ones, the ones that the powerful civilizations ignore because we cannot be used for war or profit. We are coming together for the first time in thousands of years. As if to confirm her words, new contacts began to appear on the Valiant sensors. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. But these were not warships, they were vessels belonging to species that most of the galaxy had forgotten about or dismissed as unimportant. The Crystal Singers arrived first. Their ships made of living crystal that rang with musical tones. Behind them came the Gentle Builders, whose vessels looked more like works of art than spacecraft. The Harmony Keepers brought ships that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light. War Dash, Commander Thra watched in confusion as dozens of ships from peaceful species positioned themselves between his fleet and the planet. What are these creatures doing? They have no weapons, no military value. Why are they here? His answer came not from his officers but from the quantum song itself. The combined voices of the peaceful species created a harmony that carried a simple but powerful message across space. It was a message that said some things were worth protecting, some people were worth defending, and some principles were worth dying for. The battle had been going on for 6 hours when something amazing happened. Ships from peaceful species that nobody had paid attention to for centuries began appearing all around the Nixari home world. Captain Jake Morrison watched his sensor screen as more and more vessels arrived to help defend the planet. The Crystal Singers were the first to join the fight, but not in the way anyone expected. Their beautiful crystal ships moved close to the human fighters and began to sing in harmony with the Nixari song. Suddenly, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez found that her small fighter craft was surrounded by a protective shell of crystal energy that made enemy weapons bounce off harmlessly. Control, this is Phoenix 1, Sarah reported with excitement in her voice. The Crystal Singer ships are somehow making my fighter much stronger. Their crystals are absorbing the draconian weapon blasts and turning them into harmless light. Dr. Lisa Carter was studying the readings from her science station when she made an incredible discovery. Captain, the Crystal Singers are not just protecting our fighters, they are also amplifying the Nixari quantum song. The enhancement effects on our ship are getting stronger every minute. The Gentle Builders arrived next with ships that looked like they were made from living metal. These peaceful beings had spent thousands of years learning how to work with materials in ways that other species could barely understand. When they saw the human ship taking damage from draconian weapons, they did something that amazed everyone watching. The Gentle Builder ships extended long, flexible arms toward the Valiant. But instead of attacking, these arms began to repair the human ship while it was still fighting. Holes in the hull sealed themselves with new metal that was stronger than the original. Damaged weapon systems rebuilt themselves with improvements that made them work better than ever before. Chief Engineer Ben Rogers stared at his control panels in wonder. Captain, somehow these gentle builder creatures are fixing our ship faster than the Draconians can damage it. Not only that, they are making improvements to our systems that I did not even know were possible. War Commander Thra watched all of this happening from his flagship and became more angry with each passing minute. What are these weak creatures doing? They have no weapons, no military training. Why are they interfering in this battle? His tactical officer, Subcommander Vex, tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Sir, it appears that all of these peaceful species are working together. They are not fighting us directly, but they are making the humans much more dangerous than they should be. Then we will destroy these interfering creatures first. Thra decided. Target the crystal ships and the builder ships. Show them what happens to those who stand in the way of draconian power. But when the draconian weapons fired at the peaceful ships, something unexpected happened. The weapons did no damage at all. The Crystal Singer ships absorbed the energy and transformed it into beautiful light shows. The gentle builder ships simply bent and flowed around the weapon blasts like water flowing around rocks. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, something even more remarkable was taking place. The quantum song created by the Nixari and amplified by the Crystal Singers was reaching the home worlds of dozens of peaceful species. For the first time in centuries, these gentle civilizations were hearing a call that asked them to work together for a common cause. On the water world of Oceania, the wave dancers felt the song through the currents of their planet spanning ocean. These graceful beings had the ability to control water and ice, but they had never used their powers for anything except creating art and helping their communities. When they heard the Nixari song, they knew they had to help. The wave dancer ships were made of frozen water that somehow stayed solid even in the heat of space. When they arrived at the battle, they immediately began using their abilities to help the human forces. Enemy missiles that should have hit their targets were deflected by invisible walls of solid water. Draconian ships found their weapons cooling down and becoming useless as the wave dancers lowered the temperature around them. The harmony keepers came from a world where music was more than just sound. These beings could use musical vibrations to affect the emotions and thoughts of other creatures. Their ships looked like giant musical instruments, and when they began to play, the effects were felt by everyone in the battle. The human crews found themselves feeling calmer and more focused than ever before. Fear and panic were replaced by steady determination. The crew members of the Valiant worked together with perfect coordination, as if they had been training together for years instead of months. But the harmony keepers' music had a different effect on the draconian forces. The enemy soldiers began to feel confused and uncertain. Some of them started to question why they were fighting. Others found it difficult to concentrate on their duties. A few even began to wonder if there might be better ways to solve problems than through violence. Sir, we're getting reports of discipline problems throughout the Fleet Subcommander Vex reported to war. Commander Thra, some of our soldiers are refusing orders, others are asking questions about the purpose of this mission. Thrak was furious. The purpose is victory. The purpose is showing these weak creatures that the draconian hegemony takes what it wants. Anyone who questions orders will be executed for cowardice. But even as Thra gave his threats, more peaceful species continued to arrive. The Dreamwell Weavers brought ships that seemed to shift between reality and imagination. The light shepherds arrived with vessels that looked like they were made of pure sunshine. The Memory Keepers came, ships that recorded everything they saw and shared those records with anyone who wanted to learn from them. Each species brought their own unique abilities to help the defenders. Dreamwell Weavers used their powers to confuse draconian targeting systems, making enemy weapons fire at targets that were not really there. The Light Shepherds created brilliant flashes that blinded draconian sensors, while providing perfect visibility for human forces. The Memory Keepers shared tactical information instantly between all the defending ships, allowing perfect coordination of their movements. Captain Jake Morrison realized that something historic was happening. Lisa, are you recording all of this? Every second Captain, Dr. Alyssa Carter, replied. This is the first time in galactic history that so many peaceful species have worked together. Most of these civilizations have never even met each other before today. What brought them all here? Jake asked. The Nexar song, Lisa explained. It is not just enhancing our abilities anymore. It has become a call for help that every peaceful species in this part of the galaxy can hear, and they are all answering that call. On the planet surface, Whisper of Stars felt the presence of dozens of peaceful species, joining their quantum harmony. Through the shared song, she could sense the thoughts and emotions of beings she had never met, but who shared the same basic values as her people. We are no longer alone, she whispered to the other Nexari leaders. For thousands of years, each peaceful species has lived in isolation, believing we were the only ones who chose gentleness over violence. But now we know the truth. There are many of us, and together we are strong in ways that the warlike civilizations cannot understand. The battle began to change as more peaceful species arrived. The draconian fleet, which had seemed overwhelming when it was fighting one human ship, now found itself outnumbered by dozens of vessels from species they had never considered to be threats. But these were not ordinary enemies. The peaceful species did not fight with weapons or violence. Instead, they used their unique abilities to make the draconian weapons useless and their ships ineffective. Some draconian vessels found themselves unable to move as the wave dancers froze their engines with space ice. Others discovered that their computers had been confused by Dreamweaver illusions and were giving them false information. Commander Thra realized that his overwhelming military advantage was disappearing. His ships were designed to fight other warships in direct combat. They were not prepared to deal with enemies who fought by helping each other instead of trying to destroy their opponents. Sir, we should consider retreating, Subcommander Vex suggested carefully. These creatures are not fighting us in any way we know how to counter. Our weapons are designed to destroy, but they are using abilities that create and protect instead. Draconians do not retreat, Thrax snarled, but even as he said this, he could see that his fleet was being slowly but steadily defeated by an enemy that refused to fight like an enemy should. The peaceful species had turned the battle into something completely different from what the Draconians had expected. Instead of a simple conquest, it had become a demonstration of what could be accomplished when gentle civilizations worked together for a common cause. And at the center of it all, the Nexari continued their quantum song, providing the harmony that allowed dozens of different species to coordinate their efforts perfectly. For the first time in galactic history, the peaceful peoples of the universe had found their voice. The galaxy would never be the same. The arrival of Admiral Kate Sullivan and the human Second Fleet marked the beginning of the end for War Commander Thrax's invasion, but what surprised everyone was that the human ships were not alone. Behind them came vessels from civilizations that had been watching the battle from far away, and they had decided that they wanted to be part of what was happening at the Nexari home world. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Valiant as ship after ship appeared on his sensors. There were vessels from the Merchant Guild, a group of traders who usually cared only about profit. There were ships from the healer clans, medical specialists who normally stayed neutral in all conflicts, even the mysterious observers who had watched galactic events for thousands of years without taking sides had sent a ship to see what was happening. Jake, you have started something remarkable, Admiral Sullivan said over the communication link. Half the galaxy is talking about the battle at Kepler 438c. The peaceful species working together. Humans protecting people they barely knew. The Draconians being defeated by cooperation instead of weapons. This is going to change everything. War Commander Thra looked at his tactical display and realized that his position had become hopeless. His fleet of 200 ships was now facing hundreds of vessels from dozens of different species. Most of them were not warships, but they did not need to be warships to make his mission impossible. Sir, we should retreat while we still can, Sub-Commander Vex urged. We cannot fight enemies who will not fight back in ways we understand. Our weapons are useless against opponents who turn our attacks into art and music and light. For the first time in his military career, Thra gave the order to retreat. The mighty Draconian fleet, which had never been defeated in direct combat, withdrew from the Nexari system in confusion and frustration. They had learned that there were some battles that could not be won with superior firepower alone. As the Draconian ships disappeared into hyperspace, something wonderful happened. Throughout the galaxy, news of the battle spread faster than anyone had expected. The story was not just about one small human ship protecting a peaceful planet. It was about what happened when civilizations decided to help each other instead of competing against each other. On hundreds of worlds, species that had been ignored or dismissed by the major powers began to communicate with each other for the first time. The Nexari quantum song had created a network that allowed peaceful beings to share thoughts and ideas across vast distances. Civilizations that had believed they were alone discovered that there were others who shared their values. Ambassador Helen Davis stood before the Galactic Council 3 months after the battle. the great assembly hall, which had always been dominated by representatives from the most powerful military and economic civilization, now contained delegates from species that most council members had forgotten existed for 300 years. This council has operated on the belief that only strength matters, Helen said, as she addressed the assembled delegates. You have made decisions based on military power, economic influence, and the ability to take what you want from those who cannot stop you. Zephyrian representative, a tall being with golden skin and cold eyes, interrupted her speech. The humans are being emotional about a simple territorial dispute. The Draconians wanted a planet, they failed to take it, and now they have moved on to other targets. This does not change the fundamental realities of galactic politics. Helen smiled as she gestured toward the new delegates who filled seats that had been empty for centuries. Look around you. These species that you dismissed as worthless have proven that they can defend themselves when they work together. They have shown that cooperation is more powerful than conquest. The Nexari delegate, Whisper of Stars, herself stood up to address the council. Her small size made her almost invisible among the much larger representatives, but when she spoke, everyone listened. We do not seek to replace the strong with the weak, she said in her musical voice. We seek to show that strength has many forms, the strength to heal instead of hurt, the strength to build instead of destroy, the strength to protect others instead of taking from them. The Crystal Singer delegate added her voice to Whisper of Stars, words creating harmonies that filled the assembly hall with beautiful music. The Gentle Builder representative demonstrated his people's abilities by repairing damage to the council chamber that had been there for years. The wave dancers created a fountain of liquid light that danced in the air above the delegates' heads. One by one, the peaceful species showed the galactic council abilities that were as impressive as any weapon or military technology. But unlike weapons, these abilities created beauty, healed damage, and brought joy to those who witnessed them. The council sessions continued for weeks as representatives from peaceful civilizations shared their knowledge and abilities with the galaxy. Species that had developed incredible technologies for healing, creating, and exploring offered to share their discoveries with others. The old system of keeping secrets and competing for advantage began to break down as cooperation became more valuable than competition. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, found himself at the center of these changes. He had been assigned to establish a new kind of space station at the Nexari home world, one that would serve as a meeting place for peaceful species from across the galaxy. Admiral Morrison, Whisper of Stars, said as they walked through the construction site together. We want to thank you for what you and your people did for us. We just did what was right, Jake replied. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, they would not have, Whisper of Stars said gently. For 300 years, every civilization that found us made the same choice. They decided we were not worth their attention because we could not make them richer or more powerful. Only humanity looked at us and saw people worth protecting. The construction around them was unlike anything that had ever been built before. Human engineering was being combined with Nexari quantum manipulation, Crystal Singer harmonics, and Gentle Builder material science. Result was a space station that was both beautiful and functional, a symbol of what different species could accomplish. When they worked together, Dr. Lisa Carter approached them with a data pad full of reports from across the galaxy. Admiral, we are getting incredible news. From everywhere, wars that have been going on for decades are ending through negotiation instead of victory. Trade agreements are including protections for smaller civilizations. The major powers are actually starting to compete over who can be the most helpful to peaceful species. Jake smiled as he read through the reports. The battle at Kepler 438c had done more than save one planet. It had shown the galaxy a different way of thinking about strength, value, and what civilizations could accomplish together. There is more, Lisa continued. The draconian hegemony has been having internal problems. Many of their younger soldiers are questioning why they spend so much time conquering others instead of improving their own worlds. Some draconian colonies are asking to become independent so they can join the cooperation networks that the peaceful species have created. 6 months after the battle, Jake stood in the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the facility. Nazari children were learning human games while human children learned to make flowers glow with their thoughts. Crystal singer artists were teaching humans how to create music that could be seen as well as heard. Gentle builder engineers were showing human technicians how to make buildings that could repair themselves. The changes were spreading throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Civilizations that had spent centuries fighting over resources were discovering that cooperation made resources more plentiful for everyone. Species that had been enemies for generations were finding common ground in their shared desire to build rather than destroy. Ambassador Helen Davis sent regular reports about the changes happening in galactic politics. The old system, where only the powerful had voices, was being replaced by councils that included representatives from every species, no matter how small or peaceful they might be. The galaxy is learning something that humanity figured out a long time ago, Helen wrote in one of her reports. The measure of a civilization is not what it can take from others, but what it is willing to give to help others succeed. War Commander Thra, meanwhile, had been removed from command by his own superiors. The draconian military leadership was struggling to understand how their most powerful fleet had been defeated by enemies who refused to fight like enemies should. Some draconians were beginning to wonder if there might be better ways to get what they wanted than through conquest and intimidation. As Jake watched the peaceful activity around New Harmony Station, he thought about how much had changed since that day when the Valiant had first detected strange readings from the Nexari home world. One decision to protect a species that everyone else had ignored had transformed the entire galaxy. The Nexari quantum song still continued, but it was different. Now, instead of a desperate call for help, it had become a song of hope and possibility. The harmony reached across the stars, carrying a message that every civilization could hear and understand.